Where does shoulder work have its place for building a bigger bench press? Hey everybody, I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And I'm someone who my bench press has historically kind of been my weakest lift because I have really long arms, which again makes me a good deadlifter. So for me, getting a 600-pound deadlift is actually easier than getting a 315 bench. But there you guys see me right there doing flat back with a wide grip, no arch, no wrist wraps, doing a triple with 315 at the age of 47. So, the question becomes, how do we get to some of this stuff? And I think for a lot of people, especially if you're built like me, the bench press is not going to come easy to you. So when we talk about shoulder training in the bench press, I want to be clear. Your pecs are going to be the primary mover, especially if you grip nice and wide, which is generally what we should be doing. If we're trying to build an impressive physique, you're going to want to bench pretty wide, okay? It's going to build big pecs. And if you're building big pecs and you're benching in such a way, your pecs are going to be your limit. And here's the thing to think about. If you miss right at the chest, the first inch or two off the chest, it's because of your pecs, right? Unless you're don't have any leg drive or anything, but I'm benching those with no leg drive also, so it's not really limiting me. So again, I want to be clear, pecs are going to be the primary mover on the bench, and when in doubt, working on getting bigger pecs, which means more wide grip benching, more chest work, whatever you have to do, is usually going to equal a big bench press. And that's always what we see when we see the smaller guys who have big benches. Right, you see quite a few of them, but then you see their chest, right? Guys who are lighter weight, like 170, and they're benching 405 plus, they always have big, massive pecs. So we do need to be clear, chest is going to be your limit on the bench unless you're close gripping, all right? It's going to tend to be the limit. But what about shoulder work? I think shoulder work has its place, and here's where I'm going to say it has its place. People who kind of stick in the middle to about a third of the way off the chest. And you guys know what that is. Like, you could look at what your range of motion is and then look where you miss lifts. Okay? If you've got, a 15-inch range of motion on your bench and you're missing the lift around 5, 6, 7 inches off the chest, anywhere in that range, okay? Especially at that transition point. You guys know where the transition point is. When you look at your bench press, you have a spot where the bar no longer moves in a straight line, okay? And I call it that transition point, or a lot of people call it the J-shaped strength curve. So when you're benching, it comes off your chest and it doesn't go in a straight line. It has a spot in the lift where it curves towards your face and then it goes back into a straight line, okay? So I almost think of it as like a little Z shape, but a lot of people call it the J-shaped curve. So what you'll notice is that when it transitions into that point, it starts to look a little bit just like an incline bench bar path. Just slightly. It almost feels like an incline in a way. So what I personally find is right about there, that spot, and that spot's going to vary. There's a reason I said up to a third of the way, because when this has been studied, this was studied 20, 30 years ago, where they took a bunch of benchers, a novice, a national level competitor, then they took someone like Bill Kazmaier, who was benching over 600 pounds at the time, and they looked at what their bar path looked like. They recorded it from the side. They found that the stronger a bencher was, the sooner that transition point occurred, right? How close to the chest did it occur at? And the less advanced you were, the weaker your bench, the further up there it went. So what that means is that transition point could be a third or a fourth of the way up, particularly if you're a really strong bencher. And what I find is that the shoulder work really carries over to that. What do I mean by shoulder work? Incline benching, okay? Incline benching and then overhead work. And one of those I used to say years ago, overhead carries over really well to flat bench. I don't know that it does. Because when I had my strongest overhead press, my bench was weaker than it is now. And these days, my overhead press is weaker than that, and I can bench quite a bit more. I'm talking when I think I did a 227.5 pound strict standing press with knees locked. Okay? All right off from completely off the chest. I was only benching about 325 at the time. But it's because I wasn't sticking at that position. So if you're sticking there, I think the overhead helps. Now, the overhead will also help you build your incline. And I think the incline is really what shines here. Why? because the incline works all the possible weak links on the bottom half of the bench. And if you're a raw bencher who's not close gripping, the lockout's probably not your weak link. And if it is, tricep work will fix it. You saw me doing some extensions right there. Okay, triceps will usually fix a weak lockout. All right, but failing that, really the incline, because the incline works the chest. The incline is a fantastic chest exercise. Okay. Now, it may not work the lower chest as much as some others, but depending upon where your touch point is on the bench, that may not matter as much. So what's going to tend to happen, the incline bench can kind of fix all of this, right? If you're weak anywhere on the bottom half, because if you're weak right off the chest and you need more pec, well, the incline bench is a phenomenal accessory for building your chest, right? Show me anybody who has a strong incline bench who does not have an impressive chest, right? You'll see a few guys out there who've got a big bench because of maybe the way they bench. They don't have as big of a chest as you would expect. Maybe they bench really close grip. Maybe they use a lot of leg drive. They have a lot of lash to pop it out of the bottom, okay? But you don't really see, you show me a guy who can rep 315 on the incline. Straight up rep it. Do they always have a nice big full chest? Of course they do. Right? The incline bench is a phenomenal chest exercise. Yes, it biases the upper chest more. May not be ideal for building the lower chest, but the whole top half, yeah, it's fantastic. Right? Fantastic exercise. On top of that, it builds the front delts. It works the front delts a little more than the bench press does, in my opinion. Right? Absolutely. Works those front delts. Okay, so getting a strong incline bench will tend to fix it, right? You've been stuck at a certain point on your bench press, and I don't care whether it's your maxes or your rep work. Work on incline for a while, I'm not saying replace it. Get strong in the incline. Put 20 pounds on your 10 rep max on the incline, and then watch how that sticking point starts disappearing, right? Watch how you blast through it with 20 pounds more than you used to. Okay, incline will fix it, but the overhead press, while I personally have found it doesn't really help the flat bench that much, the flat bench helps the overhead press more than the overhead press helps the incline bench, or the overhead press. But the overhead press can tend to help your incline. So if your incline is a little bit weak, sometimes a little bit of overhead pressing does what? It'll help resolve that. So it's really a nice little trifecta, okay? If you're someone who doesn't miss the lockouts are not what's getting you on the bench, working in some incline bench and then potentially some overhead pressing as an accessory to build the shoulders and upper chest and everything up can be very useful for building a bigger bench. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.